with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffman. Hey, Rich, there was a headline this week that just came screaming out to me. The Wall Street Journal reports the U.S. is the world's most competitive economy for the first time in a decade. Wow, Rich, imagine that. I mean, we've come a long, long way.
I know that in less than 2 years. I just find that to be amazing. And particularly when somebody, who is that? Oh, that's right, President Obama, said that it's not coming back. I just find that to be amazing.
And amazing things happen, and now we're the most competitive economy in the world. And as far as a major industrialized economy, we're the fastest growing economy in the world, Rich. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. We're very pleased to come on the show and maybe tell us what this means and how do we get there is Adam Michel from the Heritage Foundation. Adam, welcome to Made in America.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Adam, how did we become the most competitive economy for the first time in a decade?
I mean, I think you were just hitting on it there. The magic wand, although I don't think it's all that magic, is all of the pro-growth policies that we've been seeing. The two big ones are the deregulatory agenda that the administration has been pursuing, and then I think the biggest piece is the big tax reform that happened last year. We used to have the highest corporate tax rate in the developed world. It was pushing businesses and jobs overseas, and we lowered that. We gave a tax cut to small businesses as well. To the average American got a tax cut across the board, and all of those things are turning the economy around. If you look at the unemployment rate, consumer confidence, you look at small business confidence, employee satisfaction, all of these things are at close to record levels, and I expect we're going to continue to see that for the foreseeable future.
Well, I think this is a terrific opportunity. I find it astounding that, this is the country that invented the ability to create a Kaiser ship in World War II about every 2 hours. This is the country that came up with the production line in Henry Ford that completely changed the Industrial Revolution. So I think the two of you are absolutely correct. It's easy. Unshackle with regulation. Get rid of the regulations. Have an administration that's pro-business, which I think is very important. Not quite sure that the Obama administration was so pro-business. They certainly talked it down an awful lot. And encourage people to come back, create, do, function, unshackle the ability to borrow money and work with the banking industry in this country. And you know what, Neil, gentlemen, we could do anything.
So, Adam, we're going to have a discussion later on the show. I'd like to get your opinion on this, is that more and more of our young people are turning to socialism, or they believe in socialism more than capitalism. An astounding number, 57% of Democrats believe in socialism, or they prefer socialism over capitalism. I mean, how did we get here? How dangerous is this? How dangerous is this? And you see, this sort of super competitive economy and all the good that it's doing. We're going to talk about later about female unemployment at a 50-year low in our country. I mean, just so much positive stuff coming out, but yet more and more of our people are embracing socialism. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's the threat of getting so wealthy that we can indulge ourselves in ideologies that we know have failed time and time again. I have the answers I have are probably not as good as anyone else's as to how to reverse that, but it is terrifying. You look around, you look at the close to 100 times that we've tried communism around the world, and each and every single one of them, it's failed. It's ended in mass starvation. It's ended in economic collapse. And if you see the success story that the United States is, that other countries around the world, that when we let individuals spend their own money, we let businesses decide what to produce and where to produce it, it creates tremendous wealth, and that's what we're benefiting from today.
And then I find it astounding, and this is crazy, that just happened today. Kamala Harris came out with a statement today of course from California, that she feels that, every family making less than $100,000 a year should get a $500 a month stipend, because evidently a bank rate survey report that was done in 2017 said, well, a lot of the families out there can't afford a $500 a month expense that they weren't counting on. So she feels that we should be giving $6,000. I mean, when you listen to that, and then you juxtapose that against what we're talking right now, we even have the in-house senators fighting us on the basis of a free market. And listen, you can make more money if we work harder. We can make more money if the economy improves, and we can all share in that goodness. And yet we find our senators, particularly on the left, fighting us completely on that.
So, Adam, what's going to happen in this election cycle, or let's say presidential cycle, which is going to be like at 12:01 after the midterm elections? I actually, they've already started. But, they're all going to be out socialism. They're going to be outdoing each other's socialism. And it's just going to be, I'll put in 100 socialism and I'll up you another 100. It's just going to become socialism on top of socialism. Who can be the biggest socialist? This is amazing. I didn't hear that, Rich. Senator Harris saying, everybody gets $6,000. Amazing.
Yeah. It happened today about 11 o'clock, and it just hit the. I was just online right now, and it came across my computer while we're talking. And she's putting out this concept. She just did it today, that if you make less than $100,000, she's going to put a bill in that she thinks that you should have $500 a month to support you. That's, of course, along with the other concepts of let's health care for free and housing for free, and we'll be broken at a day.
So, Adam, this is going to definitely take away from us being the most competitive economy in the world. If we do things like that.
Yeah. I think the thing that most people miss when they're talking about how strong the economy is doing is not necessarily the lower taxes and all the good regulatory reform, but simply knowing that the government isn't going to come after me at every turn. That I think the past under Obama has had 8 years of businesses looking over their shoulders. The EPA coming after me, is the Labor Department coming after me, like just constantly in fear of the federal government coming down on you. And so I think a lot of what we've seen thus far, and there's more to come, are just businesses realizing that they are free to create jobs and opportunity. And so whether it's socialist policy X, Y, or Z, all of them turn that on its head. And now the government is an adversary to people that are creating wealth, that are creating jobs, that are living their lives however they see fit, rather than how Washington bureaucrats see fit. So I think the whole agenda is really, really worrying, and we could turn around all this good news in an instant.
Hey, Adam, will our trade war, will that potentially be a rain on this parade?
Yeah, that's one of the two things that I think are the biggest concern to me right now. If the trade war continues to escalate, tariffs are taxes, just like any other, and they fall on consumers. They distort where things are made and make us less productive. But I'm also even more concerned about the mounting debt and our rising deficit. Now there's people today and over the last couple of weeks all concerned about how big the deficit is, and they're pointing to the tax cuts that were implemented, and that's, I'm happy that people are concerned about the deficit, but we've had a mounting deficit and a growing debt for many years now, and the tax cuts didn't change that. The debt and the deficit are a spending problem at the end of the day, and we need to rein that in. Otherwise, the only option we're going to have is to increase taxes in the future.
Well, I tend to agree with what you're saying. I think the silent boogaboo in the room, bad person in the room, is the debt. And people, first of all, I don't think people really understand the nefariousness of national debt, because it doesn't touch them every day. They don't get it. It's not Main Street in the sense that they can embrace it with their own vocabulary. But I think that's a very, very big threat to us right now. I don't see personally the trade war, as some people call it, really as the big threat. I see that a legitimate way to get what we need, as being an example with the U.S. Mexican-Canadian agreement that we just penned, and now we're trying to do it with the EU, giving us leverage against a really bad guy, which is China. So I see that as from getting us from here to there. But I agree with you that the debt is a major threat to our survivability economically.
So Adam, does this 5% reduction of the government bureaucracy that President Trump is promoting, Is that something that will that make a big difference? And can he even get it over the finish line? I mean, will the Democrats push back on that?
They'll certainly push back, and it is a step in the right direction. The bureaucracy here is far too large, and there's a lot to cut. But I wouldn't say that it will make a big dent. So it's really about addressing those main unsustainable drivers of our debt that we really have to come to terms with. And no one right now seems to want to have that discussion for political reasons.
Yes, amazing. Hey, Adam, thanks for being on the show. A great discussion. Wall Street Journal this week reports that the U.S. is the world's most competitive economy for the first time in a decade. We should all take a moment and applaud that. I mean, that's a heck of an accomplishment. We've been listening to Adam Michel from the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to continue this discussion. A number of things that's in the headline this week that impact your jobs, and some very good and some not so good. You don't want to miss this.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Hey, Rich, a lot of things this week in the headlines. But, these new economy companies, I mean, they continue to boggle the mind. I mean, Uber, we all love Uber. The banks this past week have said that the value of Uber is $120 billion.
I know.
How do you make $120 billion out of Uber? I don't know. But some people believe that is the value of the company. Absolutely amazing.
Well, you know what I find amazing about Uber, and it's interesting because I use them, and I'm sure you do too. But when I'm up in
absolutely, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's the easiest thing to do, and I don't really like renting a car if I don't have to, particularly like in Los Angeles or Chicago. Who wants a car in Los Angeles and Chicago? But so I use it. And the last time I was with this young guy, he's driving the car, and we're talking how long you've been doing this and exciting. And I said, "So is this your car?" He says, "No, it's my mom's." That company is worth $120 billion. It's mommy's car. That's incredible, Neal. Just incredible.
And imagine, how, just a small cut on these fees. I don't know how small it is. I guess if you're a driver, you think it's a pretty big cut. But nonetheless, that's a whole lot of fares to get to $120 billion valuation. But that's what it is. And, you take a look at Facebook, you take a look at Google, you take a look at Amazon. These companies are just absolutely amazing the way that we place valuations on them. And, the valuations are based on earnings and the ability to earn over a period of time. So it looks like the market's saying that Uber is going to continue to do really well. But you are seeing some cracks in the armor, Rich. I mean, in certain cities like New York and so forth, they're starting to limit Uber. And other places are just totally outlawing them altogether.
Yeah, London's a problem for Uber. You know what it comes down to, Neal, and I guess I'm old school, and I have to learn, the new things that are happening, and I get it. I mean, I really get it. Fortunately, we read, we talk all the time on radio for over a decade together. But this is, wouldn't it be great if you had your own private driver when you go into another city to pick you up and take you? In the past, there's no question I would hire somebody from. I would always have a full-time driver in Los Angeles. His name was Mr. Love, by the way. And he was really his name. I still have his card. His name was Mr. Love, and he'd pick me up at the airport, and he'd stay with me for the 3 days. He'd pick me up in the morning, take me around, drop me off at the end of the evening when I'm done with whatever I had to do for business, and pick me up the next morning. But wouldn't it be great to have a private driver? And the answer is yeah. And Uber, to a degree, is your private driver. Granted, the name is Cubby, who's driving the car, but he's your private driver. And so when we look at these evaluations, and these are, of course, global, because Uber is all over the world, it's a clever idea. I mean, he who comes up with a better idea has got the better matchbox,
Everybody can, kind of work their own hours and do their own thing. I mean, it's a great form of entrepreneurialism. I mean, a lot of people that's Uber drivers, have other things they're doing, and they just kind of fill in, make some great money on the side. I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's empowering the people to work as much as you want and make the money that you want, to be entrepreneurial. Everybody can be an entrepreneur and be an Uber driver. wow, what a concept. Well, the market loves it. $120 billion worth of they like it.
Neal, wait a minute. Let's put it in perspective, then we can split from this. That's bigger than combining the big three automakers. Is that off the wall or is that off the wall?
That's off the wall.
That's off the wall.
The automakers that's making the cars so the Uber drivers can drive them, it's just kind of upside down.
Yeah.
But the world we live in, hey, President Trump says that we need a 5% budget reduction in all the government agencies. Now, if ever you've walked down the halls of our government agencies, I mean, they just go on forever and ever and ever. And, there's just so much there and so many people and all these little nooks and crannies. And it's amazing, what the American taxpayer is paying for. But there's going to be a lot of pushback to that. I mean, 5%. I mean, if you can't find 5% waste in the federal government, you're not looking very hard.
Well, you're right. I mean, here's the example that they're using on the channels right now. If you look on the tube. And they're looking at what Trump did a long time ago now. It seems like a long time ago that he took the Boeing plane, he took Air Force One, and he reduced it, Neal, by hundreds of millions of dollars in production costs down to a more realistic figure. And he's still getting the plane that everybody wanted in the first place. So he's got the template for it, don't you think?
Yeah. So I think it's a great idea. I mean, we've talked a lot about government waste and the size of our government. Hey, look, we just went through 8 years of the Obama administration, and we know how much our federal government grew. Absolutely, it's out of control. I mean, if 5% just seems to be a small down payment, but good luck in getting it. It's going to be, all kinds of pushback from the Democrats. Oh my goodness, you're taking away from Granny. You're taking away from society. You're taking away from, all the people who need it most. No, it's just waste. I mean, there's waste. I mean, if you've ever walked around these offices, the federal offices around Washington or any other place, it's amazing, how much we're spending to run the federal government. It's insane. Hey, look, another thing this week, we're collecting a lot of taxes, Rich. But no matter, it's record-breaking tax collections, we're still running up massive deficits. That shows you how big our federal government is. Hey, look, we got to move on. We got a great topic coming up. We have Elaine Parker, who's the president of Job Creators Network Foundation. She's going to talk about how female unemployment is at a 50-year low. And not only that, I mean, so many entrepreneurs, small business owners, the women in the Trump economy are doing very well, and that's a great thing. You don't want to miss this.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neal Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rubin. So, Rich, to kind of just put an exclamation mark on our last point, is that the federal government's collecting more tax dollars than they ever have, but yet we're running up a very large deficit still. President Trump says he wants to reduce all federal agencies by 5%. We know there's so much government waste. I mean, we're collecting so much money, and we're still, to support this federal government of ours, it doesn't matter how much money we collect. And he's going to get so much blowback from the Democrats when he tries to trim the size of government. I mean, that's a tough circle to square.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's draining. That goes back to this mask, this almost like a mask now, draining the swamp. To drain the swamp, you're going to also have to drain the money that goes into that swamp that helps to fund the swamp. So big fights coming up ahead.
Good point.
But then again,
the
it's
swamp
like
exists because it's got
Capitol.
so much money supporting it.
Yeah. Well, look at all the special interests. You know that when you go to Washington, you see them. When I'm in Washington, for the folks that I work with up there, I can't even begin. I didn't even know I have enough card books to keep all the cards to have all my special interests that I have to know and deal with. It's an amazing scenario.
Amazing. And one of the reasons why the federal government is collecting so much tax money is because everybody's working. And you know who's doing really well right now is women in the Trump economy. I mean, they're absolutely winning. I mean, if you take a look at female unemployment is at a 50-year low. Wages are increasing. They're leaving the sidelines. Women entrepreneurialism is up. More small business ownership. I mean, this is a really, really great story. So very pleased to have on with us right now Elaine Parker, who's president of Job Creators Network Foundation, who's just published a piece in Real Clear Politics, Women Are Winning in the Trump Economy. You got to read this. Elaine, welcome to Made in America.
Thanks for having me, Neal and Rich. I appreciate it.
So, I mean, everybody's winning. It seems like, whatever demographic you take, but wow, the women in the economy are doing really well. And a lot have been on the sidelines, haven't even been working over the last several years. And now they're rejoining the economy, and yet unemployment rate still remains so low. What that says is that you have many more people working and still the unemployment rate going to a 50-year low. That's a very hard thing to do, Elaine.
It's been fantastic. This economy has been ignited, and we are seeing women benefit, as well as other groups and other minorities, Hispanics and blacks as well. But when you look at just the female unemployment rate, you mentioned half-century low. It's 3.9%. Overall unemployment, of course, is even lower at 3.7%. It's incredible. These are incredible numbers. We've got a GDP at 4.2% for second quarter, and we're waiting for third quarter. It's likely going to be at least 4% again. But when you look at women, we've seen 1 million new prime-age women, and that's ages 25 to 54 years old, that have entered the workforce just since last November. And what we're seeing is that women are coming off the sidelines, and for those who want to move into entrepreneurism and start their own business, they're able to, because as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, historically childcare has actually been a big barrier between women and entrepreneurship. And the one of the things that we don't hear a lot about under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is the doubling of the child tax credit. That's not a deduction. It's a credit. It goes from $1,000 to $2,000 per child. So for a family that has 2 children, they now can deduct $4,000 off of their overall tax bill. And that can cover childcare. I don't have kids that are at childcare age anymore. They're grown up. But it was a huge line item in my budget. So, Rich, you're hearing that
that educated women, specifically urban, suburban, educated women, the polls are saying that they're against Trump. I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive that you see all of this employment, people making money, everybody's in the job force, entrepreneurialism is up, small business ownership by women is up, but yet the polls are saying that the women are going against Trump. What do you think?
Well, that's the conundrum. That's the thing that concerns me. And I don't know if I believe the polls anyway, because I stopped believing them a while back, particularly with 2016. But I'd like to hear from Elaine, how does this convert to what's going to happen in 19 so days from now when we come up to the midterm vote? If, in fact, the women are doing so much better, which they are, if, in fact, all these good economic signs are out there, which they are, then why are we hearing a good plurality of women are not in favor of Trump, or they're going to at least here's the oxymoron of all, they're going to vote Democrat, and I would think that would put us back where we were 8 years ago. So I'd like your thoughts on that, because I find that to be a total confusion.
It's really unfortunate because the media has not reported on the benefits of the tax cuts as much as they could. As a matter of fact, there's been a lot of misinformation out there about the tax cuts and how it benefits middle America and small business and has helped ignite this economy. 90% of Americans are going to benefit and see tax relief from this tax bill. That includes women, minorities, men, everybody, and that's important. But the small business really had a great seat at the table with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And this is another thing that can help women who want to move into entrepreneurship is a 20% tax deduction, small business tax deduction that's included, which will continue to help fan these flames of entrepreneurialism even more. This protects 1/5 of their income so that they can reinvest their income into their business and into their employees. And that's exactly what we're hearing small businesses do. We have thousands of members across the country who are telling us through their emails, through our newsletters, they're telling us that they are giving wage increases, bonuses. They're expanding their business. And we have a guy in South Florida who actually is a cookie maker. He makes 12 million cookies a day. He's building a new distribution facility. He's hiring more people, and he's given all his employees $3,500 to $5,000 a year in wage increases. That's not just a one-time payout. That's a wage increase. That's permanent.
Wow. Great stuff. I mean, that's a lot of cookies. Elaine, thanks for being on the show. We've been listening to Elaine Parker, who's the president of Job Creators Network Foundation. Coming up, we have Professor Paul Ryan from Emory University, and he says that economics professors have not done our country a service by teaching our young people the ills of socialism in the good of capitalism. It's scary stuff when 57% of Democrats say that they prefer socialism. You don't want to miss this.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffin. Here, Rich, we just talked about how women in the Trump economy are doing so well. I mean, unemployment at a 50-year low. They're leaving the sidelines or going back into the workforce. You have women-owned businesses are way up. Entrepreneurialism is way up. I mean, it seems like a really great thing. And you know, hey, look, it's been a lot of years that we haven't had those bragging rights. But today we do. But, you know, the thing that really bothers me and disturbs me is how many of our young people still seem to embrace socialism. It's just absolutely mind-boggling to me. It's stunning. But that's the world we live in. You know, why is that? I mean, what can we do about it? Well, our next guest, Paul Rubin, who's a professor at Emory University, says that our economics professors need to do a better job of educating our young people. I think that's a brilliant idea. Paul, welcome to Made in America.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You know, I read your piece, and this is true. I mean, it's coming up in the media all the time. 57% of Democrats prefer socialism. I mean, how outrageous is that? I mean, this is a scary statistic, Professor.
It's very scary. And it's bizarre in a way because we don't have to look very far. Just look at Venezuela, and you can see the effects of socialism, and yet people seem to still want it. Of course, the young people now have forgotten the Soviet Union, or they view it as a historical episode and don't understand what was causing it, what it was, or anything about it. But you say you don't have to go very far, even to Venezuela, and you can see the effects of socialism.
Well, you don't have to, hey, Rich, you don't have to go very far. I mean, you could go to New York City and you could see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You could see Bernie Sanders, running for president.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You don't have to go very far. You can go to any channel on TV right now and you can see what's going on. Go look at all the progressive-run states right now and take a look at some of the socialist concept policies that they've got. And isn't it amazing that you can kind of align all those states, all those cities in the top 10 of the worst places to be involved in right now for business, and they're all socialist, progressive, Democrat sort of controlled. And how did we get here? I find it to be astounding.
So, Professor, how did we get here?
Well, there are a lot of things involved, but what I focus on is my own business. I'm a professor of economics, and I think I hate to say it because I think we aren't doing a good job, we economists, in teaching our students about the harms of socialism or the benefits of a capitalist system. It's part of it is we don't get the students; they don't take economics, and sadly enough, I'm not sure that even when they do, that we all teach them the kinds of things we should be teaching them.
So, Rich, I guess the only silver lining here is that young people don't vote as much as older folk do, because if they did, we would be electing a lot more socialists.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what really bothers me, Neal? This is not something that happened, overnight. This has been going on for about 30 years. Look, if you look back and you look into mainstream the United States in terms of media, and I don't mean television, but look at Wall Street, the movie Wall Street. All right, Oliver Stone. Wall Street is a very anti-Wall Street movie. I mean, it talks about greed is good. You remember the very famous Michael Douglas scenario. Greed is good. Greed purified. Greed clarifies. And it really makes, corporate America look like a disgusting, miserable place that's taking advantage of the masses for the very few 1%, which, by the way, they made up anyway. What 1% are we talking about? 1%. And so when you start doing that in a social setting, which is a movie theater, and you combine that with the courses that they're teaching or not teaching, because they don't teach civics either in a lot of schools, then what do these people know? I mean, if you say to them, hey, do you understand what socialism did in Russia? Well, Uncle Joe, I don't mean Biden, killed 60 million people. And what about Mao Zedong? Neal, you and I do business in China. We've been back. You go all the time. I don't go anymore. But, when you look at Mao Zedong, to consolidate his power for a socialist communist society, he killed 70 million people that we know of. But they don't know that.
So, Professor,
the estimates are 100 million people were killed by communists. But again, that's not.
Oh, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And at the same time, there's 85 million Americans that are being supported by small businesses. So if you want to beat up on Wall Street, why are we beating up on our small businesses? Because that's capitalism, too. Socialism wipes them out. So how stupid can that be? I mean, you're going against the grain that's made this country such a great place, the most prosperous country of the world. You're going against the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, the things that's given our country so much power. You're turning their backs on these people. So, Professor, I just don't get it. How could our young people, be so out of tune?
They take it for granted. I mean, they see we're a rich society, and they just assume that's a natural thing, and they don't understand what it takes to get to there, and they don't understand that it's really fragile. That if you do the wrong thing, again, I hate to keep coming back to Venezuela, but Venezuela was the richest country in Latin America. And bad policies have made it into a complete and utter disaster. But students don't understand where prosperity comes from, and they don't understand how easy it is to destroy prosperity. So, they just don't know, and we aren't, as you say, we aren't teaching them. And I wish we were. I wish we economists at least were teaching them more than we're doing now.
Well, Professor, thanks for being on the show. Professor Paul Rubin from Emory University. Wrote a great piece just recently. A statistic that just blew me away. 57% of Democrats prefer socialism. There's something really wrong when that is happening in our country. Professor, thanks for being on the show.
Okay, thank you for having me again.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day.
Made in America.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Hey, Rich, it was great to report today some really positive things. The U.S. economy, the most competitive, again, in the world. And we weren't that for the last decade. A huge accomplishment. We had a great discussion with Elaine Parker. The women are winning in the Trump economy. And how awesome is that? That's really, really wonderful stuff. I hope that they come out to vote. I hope they come out to vote to continue, this economic expansion that we have, to continue the policies of President Trump. So, we continue to build this economy. Yet, we had a discussion, and this is like scary, scary, scary stuff with Professor Rubin from Emory University. And, he's just published a piece saying 57% of the Democrats prefer socialism. Our young people in droves and droves and droves are embracing socialism. You don't have to go far. Right here in our own country, candidates for Congress like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez up in New York City. Of course, on the presidential side, Bernie Sanders. And I think, Rich, whatever Bernie was advocating for, should he run again, and he probably will, but there's going to be a number of others running. They're going to even be further to the left of Bernie in 2016. I don't know how you could become the Democrat candidate for president unless you keep one-upping socialism. I mean, it's a bizarre thing. It's surreal, but that is the world that we're living in, and it's incredibly dangerous, very, very, very dangerous for us, for our children, for our grandchildren, and their children. We got to stop this thing. We got to turn it around. We got to get our young people embracing economic freedom.
Well, Neal, I mean, there's a way to do that. So everyone listening right now, here's your assignment. All right, number 1, vote. Number 2, vote. Number 3, vote Republican. Not one Democrat. Vote Republican. That's your chance to at least stop this forward momentum and give us another 4 years or 2 years, depending on the vote, to get your act together as we move forward. I do find it astounding, again, that we've gone down this road. And you're right, Neal, unless you're left of Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie, we know Bernie well. We talked about him for a long time. Bernie wants to give a puppy for everybody and free Broadway tickets and all this stuff. But everyone's far to the left of Bernie right now. I mean, Bernie was a moderate compared to what's going on right now. When you listen to Spartacus out of New Jersey, Booker, of course, is Spartacus, and you see the ridiculousness that we're dealing with right now in terms of the schools. We don't teach the reality of capitalism versus socialism. We don't even they don't even understand in terms of schools, how we're a republic and not a straight democracy, which would be a little scary because then the mob would rule. And by the way, California and New York and Illinois would decide completely who's going to be anything in the country. So they don't even understand why the Electoral College was put in as a stopgap. So that scares me, Neal. And the first thing we have to do, bar anything else that we're talking about, we can have this conversation over the next 6 months, which we will. But if we don't vote, if everyone listening right now does not get out and vote and get their friends to vote and their friends' friends to vote, I'm taking that real seriously. This is as important as it was to get Trump into office. That was the start. But it will end in a very bad way if we don't keep control of the House and we don't keep control of the Senate, and we must keep the executive, and then we have 4 more years to put up more of a roadblock to this insane environment that we're dealing in right now.
Yeah, it's there's a tremendous amount at stake. I mean, we are a show that promotes American ingenuity and promote American risk taking, and those who sit around the kitchen table who are thinking about making an investment in themselves and in their businesses and, launching whatever that might be. And for the first time in a long time, they're being encouraged. They're being encouraged to just put themselves out there, to take that risk. Our inventors, I mean, they're out there. They're doing whatever they can. They're borrowing money. They're taking it from wherever they can because they feel confident. You see it in all the numbers, and you see it amongst all the demographics. African Americans, Latinos, women, everybody is out there putting themselves out there. You see new business startups. You see entrepreneurialism on the rise. And that could all come to a halt. And it would be so devastating for our people. It really would be. I mean, people who are dreaming about their futures and they have this vision about their families, about how good it could be. They could have the rug pulled out from them so fast, Rich. We got to prevent that. Unfortunately, though, although we've had an incredible discussion today, we're out of time. But don't worry, we're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.